Hello and welcome to this video presentation. My name is Paul Brett. I'm a Senior Software Support Analyst supporting the Transformation Extender product from IBM. The topic for this video is ITX Design Studio Debugger with Java code. Feel free to reach out to me on popular social media channels at Paul Brett IBM. When an IBM Transformation Extender map calls a JEXIT or the JavaClass Adapter, then breakpoints can be put into that Java code that is called and then compiled in debug mode. Command Server can be configured to run in debug mode via edits to the dtx.ini file. The Design Studio can hook into the Command Server or launcher and step through the Java code when it is called. Let's move on with the demonstration. We'll start this demonstration in the ITX Design Studio. I'm using version 9 as I'm having troubles with my later versions currently, but this should continue to work with other versions as well. As you can see, I have two projects, one called Map Project, and I also have a Java project called test.jexit. If we have a look on the disk, in the map project directory I have a type tree, I have a source map, and I have compiled that source map. If we have a look in the directory where the JEXIT is going to be created, we have just test1.java. This has not been compiled yet. So let's open the map and have a quick look. I have one output card, there are some dummy rules followed by a call to the JEXIT wrapped inside a valid. If I build and run this map, it will fail. Fail function aborted map. This is because the JEXIT cannot find the class. So let's go and create that class next. We'll close the map for the moment, switch to test.jexit, and we'll switch to the Java perspective. Within test.jexit, I can open test1.java. What we'll do is we'll make one quick change to the file and save it, and then undo that change and save it again. And just by doing that, that will compile the file for me, test1.class. So the class is there in another project, but the main map is still not going to be able to find that class. So if we go back to the map, switch back to the Transformation Extender perspective and run, we're still going to get fail function aborted map. Okay, back in the JEXIT, and if I right click and choose export and choose to export as a jar file, I'm going to place the jar file in my ITX9 Xdjar directory and call it test.jexit.jar. Click finish. If I show you that directory, you will see that this file has appeared, test.jexit.jar. Compile time is now. Unfortunately, I do not believe my map will run still because Design Studio will need to be reloaded. Yes, fail function aborted map. So if I restart Design Studio and now run the map, map completed successfully. And if we have a look in the map directory, we've got a file called result.txt which includes the result of my JEXIT call, a UUID string. Okay, so we have our map rule working, we have our JEXIT working. Next, let's move on to debugging that. Back in the Design Studio, I'm going to open my test1.java file in the Java perspective, and I'm going to start adding some breakpoints. Let's put a breakpoint here, and put a breakpoint here. From the Run menu, I'm going to choose Debug Configurations, and under Remote Java Application, I'm going to add a new configuration. My project has been filled out for me because it's the only Java project and it's the one I have opened, test.jexit. It's going to expect the debug server to be on localhost and running on port 8000. If we check our class file, you will notice that it may need recompiling, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to make a small change and save, and remove that change and save. That's forced the class file to recompile. And now I'm going to recreate my jar file. Again, I'm going to export to a jar file called test.jexit.jar in the ITX9 Xdjar directory. Asks if I want to overwrite it. I'm going to click yes. Now if I was running the map from the Design Studio, I would have to start the Design Studio again to pick up that change. But I'm actually going to be running the map from Command Server, so we don't have to restart Design Studio. So let's open the directory where the map is and open up a command prompt here. Prepend the path to my ITX9 installation and run the command server. Now from here I'm going to choose map and run the map, and the map is completed successfully. Over in my Design Studio I'm going to try and run the debugger. Now this is going to fail because there's a small change I need to make in the dtx.ini file, but I'll show you what happens when we try. So back to the remote Java application debugging configuration that I made earlier, and if I click the debug button, you'll get a screen here saying that it's failed to connect to the debugger because the command server has not started the debugger. Okay, so how do we make the command server start the debugger? We need to make a slight change to the dtx.ini file. In the JVM Options section, I've got two lines here, option 1 and option 2. I'll be including these two lines in the notes of this video. With those changes made, the next time I start the command server, and if I run a map, it will actually start the debug server as well. So I'm going to run a map now. The map has completed successfully. I'm not going to close this window. It has started the debug server for me. And over in the Design Studio, I now need to connect to that debug server. From Run, Debug Configurations, Test 1, Debug. This time you will note that I do not get the error message, and it is hooked in to the command server debug server. Now from this same window I need to run the same map again, and over here you get a message telling you that it wants to confirm a perspective switch to the debug perspective, and if I click yes, we're in debug mode and it's showing you the ID of the instantiation of the class. I'm going to maneuver my windows around a bit so that we can see the command server and the debug running at the same time. You will notice that the command server appears to have hung. It's stuck on running map currently, but that's because the debugger has stopped at a breakpoint. If I step through that breakpoint, it jumps to the next one, but it also tells me the value of some variables that have now been assigned. For example, UUID has now got a UUID string. And the last breakpoint has been reached, so if I step through now, the map should finish. And it has. The command server now shows map completed successfully. The Design Studio is still connected to the debug server. If I was to instantiate yet another one, it would jump to the breakpoint again, and I can step through it and check the values of the variables. Map completed successfully. If I quit the command server, we get a disconnected notice in our Design Studio here. Even if I was to run the Design Studio again, it would not fire up this debugger. We would have to reconnect by going into Run Debug Configurations, and I'd have to click the debug button again to rehook into the command server once I'd run it and run one map. Now the same can be said of the launcher. Those two lines that I added to the dtx.ini will also kick off a debug server when you start the launcher. I do believe it will start straight away. You won't have to run one map, but it wouldn't hurt just to run one map anyway, trigger one map. Then you would hook into the launcher with the debug button, and then the next time you triggered the map, it would again switch to this debug perspective and allow you to step through the breakpoints. And if you were monitoring that map with something like dtxmon, it would show a long green line saying that the map was continuing to run until you stepped through all the breakpoints and allowed the map to finish. And that's the end of the demonstration today. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch my video presentation today. If you found the content interesting and informative, please hit that like button, perhaps leave a comment. Consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, as I release content such as this on a regular basis. Feel free to reach out to me on popular social media channels at Paul Brett, IBM. Thank you.